I got home that evening to an empty house, the kind of quiet that presses down on you until it feels alive. The smell of her perfume lingered faintly in the air, lighter than usual, but different. I frowned, a twist of unease coiling in my stomach. She had said she'd be out with friends, but something about the way the light hit the living room window, the slight tilt of the curtains, made my mind race. I had learned over the years that small details can carry enormous weight. I checked my phone as I hung up my coat. No messages, nothing that gave away her whereabouts. Still, the pit in my stomach refused to settle. I remembered the way she had kissed me that morning, distracted, almost absent, as if her mind were already somewhere else. I shook my head. I didn't want to believe the thoughts that had begun to creep in, that maybe she wasn't as faithful as I had always trusted her to be. I heard the door click, and before I could call out, she appeared in the hallway, dressed neatly, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, but something was off. Her hands trembled just enough for me to notice. "I'll be back late," she said softly, already moving toward the door. I nodded, trying to mask the tension in my voice. "Okay, have a good evening." The second she closed the door, my chest tightened. I paced, trying to understand the sudden flood of unease. It wasn't just the perfume or the distracted kiss, it was the subtle avoidance in her gaze, the tiny flinch when I'd stepped close. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios until I could no longer ignore the suspicion gnawing at me. I remembered a friend mentioning a recent co-worker she had been spending time with. Long lunches, shared errands, whispered conversations that he called innocent. But I couldn't ignore the possibility that they weren't. I called him, asking casually about her, but his assurances felt hollow. I felt myself slipping, twisting reality to fit my fear. Hours passed. The house remained quiet. I tried to focus on anything else, but my eyes kept straying to the window, to the empty driveway, to the clock ticking down the minutes. And then I made the decision that changed everything. I grabbed my coat and left, determined to see her for myself. I drove to the little cafe downtown where she often met people after work. My heart pounded in my ears as I approached, the world around me blurred. I saw her first, sitting at a table near the window, her posture relaxed but her fingers fidgeting with a napkin. Across from her was a man I didn't recognize, leaning in, laughing softly at something she had said. I stopped short, my chest tight. There was a tension in the air, a quiet intimacy that made my stomach twist. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, tear the truth from her lips. And yet, when I saw the way she looked at him, I noticed something else, a subtle, almost anxious glance at the door, as if she were waiting for someone else. I froze, my mind trying to process it. And then I realized, she wasn't expecting anyone to intervene. She wasn't hiding this from me in a malicious way. Something in her posture, the way her hand lingered near her purse, told me she had been planning this meeting for a reason that had nothing to do with betrayal. I stepped closer, unsure whether to confront or retreat. She looked up and our eyes met. That small, sharp catch in her breath, recognition, fear, guilt, all of it reflected in a single moment. She started, but stopped. Words failed her, and I could see the panic rising behind her eyes. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. "I think I need to know what's happening," I said quietly, the edge in my voice not hidden. She swallowed, eyes darting away. I planned to meet another man tonight," she admitted, the words trembling, fragile. I didn't want you to know." My heart dropped. I could feel it breaking, piece by piece, the disbelief pressing against my ribs. Another man. Who? My voice was quieter than I expected, almost hollow. She took a deep breath, her gaze finally meeting mine. It's my brother," she said, and then explained, a story of a brother she hadn't spoken to in years, a reconciliation long overdue, a secret she thought she needed to handle alone, away from the weight of my suspicion. I felt my knees weaken, the flood of emotion overwhelming. Anger, relief, betrayal, love, all tangled together, leaving me gasping for clarity. "Your brother?" I whispered, barely able to comprehend. "Yes," she said, voice soft but firm. "I wanted to surprise him. It wasn't about anyone else. I didn't want you to worry, but I see now that hiding it has caused exactly that." I felt the heat of my own shame. The jealousy, the paranoia, the creeping distrust. They had led me here, standing in front of her, almost accusing her of something that never existed. My own insecurities had created a mirror, making me see shadows where there was only family, love, and a desire for connection. I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping me. I almost ruined everything over nothing, I said, my voice breaking. I let my fear dictate my actions, my mind conjure betrayals that weren't real. She reached for my hand, fingers trembling. I should have told you, she admitted, guilt lining her words. I thought I was protecting you, protecting us. But I see now that secrets, even small ones, create the same distance as lies. We stood there, silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of what had almost been lost. The cafe hummed quietly around us, oblivious to the personal storm that had passed between us. I'm sorry, I said finally. For doubting you, for letting suspicion overtake trust. I need to learn to come to you first, not let fear dictate my heart. I'm sorry too, she said, eyes glistening. For hiding it, for letting my own plans create a gap between us. I never wanted to hurt you. We embraced then, a hug that was tentative at first, careful, but slowly it became grounding. Not just comfort, but a silent understanding, a commitment to honesty, to communication, to rebuilding the trust that fear had nearly shattered. The lesson stayed with me. Love isn't just about faithfulness in the obvious sense, it's about openness, transparency, and the courage to confront fear before it twists reality. Sometimes the most threatening betrayals are not acts of infidelity but the shadows cast by our own doubts. That night, as we walked home together, hand in hand, I realized something profound. Love can survive fear if it is met with truth, courage, and the willingness to forgive. Not because the past can be erased, but because two people choose to face it together, honestly. And in that quiet, heavy embrace, I understood that the strongest bonds aren't those untouched by doubt, they're the ones tested by it and proven resilient, in the end, by our shared commitment to see and trust each other fully.